Hello everyone, welcome back to another Tuesday stream time with Krispy and Storm Song and Andy. And we doing more drawing today.
Oh.
Hi guys.
Bone, and I cannot emphasize this enough, swag.
Yes. It's
What are
another
we drawing
wonderful
today,
Tuesday.
Crispy?
Well, you sent me
Yeah,
something the other day that I wanted to start with. I hate the
Okay.
fucking description
Sorry,
of the channel, you son of a bitch.
Quick pause, Crispy. There is no visual.
There is not. That is a problem.
Yeah, there is only sound.
Really? Nothing's... Let me say. Yeah, that's weird. Oh, sorry everyone, technical difficulties. I really think it's my internet, because it's not the fastest today. So, there's still nothing?
Okay, there's the visual.
Okay, yeah, I just had to reboot my tablet. Sorry about that, folks. I'm not sure what caused that one, but this is an old tablet. I think it's about 10 years old at this point, so, oh well. Anyway, cryptid list. Let me read this off here before I start. Also, hold on, let me put on some background music for us.
To catch chat up, we are working on a cryptid that was designed in the Legion the other night via some other participants.
Okay. So, we have a single detached floating eyeball for the head. Body of a Kentorosaurus, which is like a Stegosaurus, but spikes. Tentacles without suction cups. Millipede legs, that's going to be fun. And then, what is that? Like an iron tail waffle flagellum? What is that?
No, it just said flagellum. Like, think of how, like, when bacteria propel themselves.
And then the last one is an amorphous shell, like a force field of gelatin. Interesting. So that's going to be a hell of a sight. Alright.
Yeah, I saw Tim in the chat, and I noticed that there are like five other people. I'm like, there are 6 people.
That's
is a
enough to
perfect
play.
opportunity.
Honestly, that's the best time to get people, is to just kind of like blindside them with it.
Wing them.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, guess what?
And I didn't let Storm Song have the head.
I mean, there is the millipede legs,
Although it was
which
gonna...
is... What,
I mean, there was that moment though where then there was that moment then when Talon's like, "Quick, Storm, what would you make the head?" And he was like, "No, God damn it!"
That sounds about right. Oh. Always make it the most, like, inconvenient thing to draw. I forget if you did, like, the double deer head on that one that I did a while ago. That one was pretty good.
That one was good. Yeah. I was very
so
much
you're like,
that one.
You get one good one. Everything else is just like me flipping the desk. Alright. And then,
well, I mean...
Okay, so this has like a dinosaur body. Weird.
Yeah, think of a Stegosaurus, but instead of the plates, it's like spines. Like, you can look it up, it's like a Kentosaurus or something.
That's gonna go really well without a gel amorphous shell. You know what? I'm just gonna do this fun little art technique called I'll wing it. And we'll just see how this thing turns out. So it needs this eyeball. Let's make it really gross looking eye.
Someone suggested that the head would be a wheel with a bunch of crying babies tied to it, and I was like, no!
That sounds like something that Storm would come up with.
So, well, no, it was a parody of what Storm would come up with, because Andy made an ado about, like, yeah, thankfully Storm didn't get the head this time, and Talon's like, Storm, what would you do for the head?
Yeah, that's a mistake asking him that question.
And So he made that joke, and then Andy was like, "No."
Storm, this is why we don't let you play.
You're so mean.
Look,
this is why Bob doesn't fucking love you.
I just want to know what your like Bible study classes are like. If that's the sort of imagery you keep coming up with, like. I'm only slightly
to be fair
concerned.
to be fair to my Bible study classes, that imagery only exists largely because I read way too much SCP.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I bet Hojo likes to look over his shoulder at Storm Song's papers.
I mean, it's like you get into like the Book of Revelations, and it just turns into an acid trip. Like,
well, the real acid trip is.
There's one point where John, who's the writer for it, is just told to eat a book. And
yes,
he does it.
Although the really trippy shit are the Book of Ezekiel and the Book of Isaiah. That's where you get the wings surrounding the wheels within wheels of eyes and
the Orifim.
See that imagery, I always kind of sticks with me, especially these days where it's like, okay, I don't want to immediately get into aliens, but the whole idea of like aliens in the Bible I find is kind of fascinating, and you see a lot of that sort of imagery, you know, in regards to like angels. Back, I mean, nowadays they're more like humans, but that used to be more of what there was in the Bible, and I just think that's so interesting. Just like, what if, you know, it's a fun what if.
I think generally when angels interacted with humans, they appeared human, but like the weird looking ones are usually like special messengers or something like that.
Well, the word angel literally just means messenger of God.
I could be your angel or your devil.
Yeah, like, so, lol. So, like, an angel could be a man, like a literal human being, or it could be an otherworldly creature. Which is why, technically speaking, the so-called biblically accurate angels are better described as heavenly beings rather than angels, because some of them aren't messengers, they serve other functions.
I had a horrible thought of going back in time to do, like, the angel from God thing to, you know, people, but just go back dressed up as, like, Mr. Roboto from the Styx music video. Doing the dance and everything.
Arigato, Mr. Roboto.
You just come back to like the present, and then you're just singing that in a church in Gregorian falsetto. So he's got like a.
Well, I had always joked about wanting to do a Nightwish style cover of that song.
That would be kind of fun, because, well, you would need like the original vocalist, because she definitely had more of like the opera voice for it.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, I think you could definitely pull off some good stuff there. I actually found out this weekend that, you know, the Led Zeppelin song No Quarter, Tool actually did a cover of that, which I was not aware of, and I was listening to that this weekend, and it's very Tool. I like it. I don't know, I guess it depends on your thoughts on Tool as a band, but...
I mean, I don't particularly hate Tool. I'm not the biggest fan myself, but...
That's fair. It's more been an acquired taste for me. Some of their songs I'm not really super into, but some I'm into.
Yeah, like, for me, the only problem I have with Tool is they have that whole we hate our own fans thing going.
That would explain the tone of some of their songs.
Yeah, if you get to that point as an artist, like, maybe you shouldn't be an artist? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I hope I never get to that point where I'm just jaded and hate my fans.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I will admit there's times where... And there's times where people, like, ask me to draw stuff, and I'm like... You know, I don't mind suggestions, but there's just sometimes I'm just, like, almost just tired of, like, man... Just like, let me just do my own shit for a while.
Yeah.
It's like if we weren't be doing this, I'd be doing some world building for my comic setting, which I would like to do more of on the stream, but I'm also, I guess, kind of hesitant to, because I don't want to spoil anything, and I guess this is a thought I actually had. I wanted to bring up on here that I had earlier today, Storm. and I guess Andy, you too, since we all draw or like make art and stuff. But have you guys like ever had that point where you just don't really want to share your stuff? Not necessarily. I mean, part of it may be self-confidence, but also just like, just about people's reactions to it. And I don't mean that as like it's edgy content or something. It's just like, I guess you're self-conscious about like what people will think of it.
I've gotten there.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just thinking back to like growing up, learning to draw and stuff. I kind of got picked on. I don't want to make it sound like I was like viciously bullied, because I got plenty of picked on, but honestly, compared to what most people probably had to deal with bullying, I was pretty well light with that, But, I, of course, get picked on for stuff one way or another, and, being someone that's on the spectrum, it's kind of, you don't necessarily read the, in between with it, I guess. But that's really not here nor there. It's just more of like, there's times where I'd be like trying to draw or like learn how to draw stuff, and people would just kind of tease me for like the stuff I was into, which I guess is just part of, growing up. But I went through that.
Andy sounded like he had a thought to that.
Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I think I mostly just drew for myself, like, past the boarding. I rarely shared it with people. When I did, most of the ones they appreciated were, like, stuff of other stuff, like Batman or Spider-Man and all that, but...
Yeah. Well, I guess, part of the reason I had this thought today was I realized that, I do share a fair bit of my work, places, but I'm also, at the same time, hesitant to share stuff,
I mean...
I wonder if that's part of it too. Is just like I mean, with the comic project I'm working on, which I don't want to make it sound like it's it'll be out soon or anything. It's very much like a slow passion project, work in progress kind of dealio. So I don't want to like hype people up necessarily. Which I mean that also kind of goes back to my point too. It's just like I don't want to like necessarily hype what I'm doing, because I don't want to be disappointed by people's reaction to my story that I write. But maybe that's just me being too self-conscious. I don't
know. Personally, I mean, like, I think part of it has to do with knowing where to take your material. So, like, for example, I'm not going to look for criticism of my art on, say, like 4chan or Twitter or Reddit, because I'm going to get one of, 3 kinds of people that are, not necessarily going to be helpful. And while there may be some helpful voices in there, there's either going to be the guy who's just going to say something nasty because he's a troll, the guy that's going to, like, look at your stuff and say, now's my time to shine, and rip it apart because criticizing art is more profitable than making it. To some, no, I'm not bitter, shut up. And
I wouldn't know anything about people being wet blankets like that. No way. Anyway.
Yep.
Not like my one college professor told me I wasn't good at drawing or anything, but I digress.
Yeah. And then the third kind, which are the people who are going to give you maybe praise or like tell you should do one thing different or whatever, but whatever it isn't constructive. Like, you really only want to bring your art to a place where there will be constructive criticism and genuine reception.
Yeah.
Where at the very least, if you're getting a sympathy, like, it's coming from someone you actually know and whose opinion matters.
Yeah. And
and more than likely you're not going to get a sympathy, like, because your friends do want to be honest with you as well. Also, sorry, quick stop.
I guess it's
hey, boys, thank you, your man. Hey, UNC Samurai.
Oh yeah, I guess we should check on
going.
chat.
I was just checking chat.
I guess that's true. I would say if part of that too is also relying on if you're posting it to look for feedback or if you're posting it because you're done with it, Like, I'm not necessarily talking about a works in progress. Like, if I post a work in progress, I may want some feedback on that if people want to give it. If it's done somewhat, but at a certain point, there's a difference between giving criticism in a constructive way, and then there's just like, okay, now you're just kind of like picking at it. And I obviously there's a huge difference, and one of the things that, and I'm not saying it was easy for me, but you have to learn how to take criticism in one way or another.
Oh yeah.
Not that it's always easy. It can hurt, but it's how you kind of see past like your own ego with stuff, and how you can kind of get like another perspective, because really that is really important to growing and developing as any sort of creator.
Also, hey Ramshackle, I would say another big component to it is the unfortunate reality is not everyone knows how to be an art critic, properly speaking.
No.
So, like, you have somebody who may have, in fact, constructive criticism and be coming from a genuine good faith place, but they have no bedside manner.
Yeah, that's also a very good point, and I've had interactions like that with people,
Mm-hmm. And it like
they come at it in a way that almost makes it sound like they're just like picking it apart,
And they don't realize they're doing it a lot of the time. They genuinely only mean well, but they don't realize that they are contributing to a problem.
There is some tact with you want to have with giving feedback. I mean, like when we in college with having graphic design as a major, we would have critiques all the time in class at different stages of the project we were working on, and you really wanted to get honest feedback from people so you can know what you can change. And also, there is the matter of it too, where you don't necessarily have to do every sort of feedback that people give you when it comes to critique, just ones that you think will help improve it, but which really, honestly, that's a hard thing to kind of say what's helpful and what's not. It's almost like a go with your gut kind of thing in some ways. But also just like, for some practicality of it too, it's like, I'm not going to completely redo a piece that I've finished just because of X or Y feedback. I'm just not. I might take it to heart for the next time I do something, or if I'm far enough along.
And that's really all you can.
Yeah.
And that's all you really can do sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, hey, buddy. My kitty has wandered in here. He's meowing at me.
He's too adorable.
He's a sweet boy. He gets into a lot of trouble because he's a goblin, but he's a sweet boy. He likes to wake me up in the morning for pets. He was all snuggled up to me this morning when I got up.
This is understandable. Excellent team.
I also just gotta be careful because he has hopped on top of my computer tower, and I have the reset button for my computer on top of it, so I gotta make sure he doesn't hit that in the middle of stream. So this thing kind of had like a spike tail to it, so it's like... Yeah, it's like... almost like a bone knife, which is metal. Like, not actually metal, but I guess it could be. Another thing, actually, too, kind of going back to the idea of sharing stuff, I think part of it, too, at least for me, is, I don't want to come off as the kind of... I don't want to be, like, a pretentious, like, anything when it comes to my art, Sorry, give me 1 sec. I gotta put him out. He's getting into stuff.
I demand pets.
Sorry about that. I just looked behind me and Pudding was climbing on the shelves.
So Ramshackle says he just discovered that Colonel Sanders is actually a canon hero with his own adventures in Detective Comics.
No shit.
And then also says, I'm the worst person to ask for criticism. I'm a professional yes man. Well, you know that about yourself, and that's important.
I mean, that's actually a really good point too. Is like you obviously want like positive feedback on your stuff, but you also don't want someone kissing your ass. At least I feel that way. I don't want someone necessarily just blowing smoke up my ass just because they want to please me. I mean, I definitely appreciate positive feedback on my work, don't get me wrong, but, just don't tell me, like, oh, everything's perfect, because, I mean, this is also me being, like, someone that really struggles with self-criticism quite a lot, so take that with a grain of salt. But that kind of goes back to what I wanted to say before I had to take my cat out of the room. But one of the things I think when it comes to wanting to share my work is that I don't want to come off as like someone who's like got a pretentious ego about stuff. Like, I don't want to ever discourage anyone from being creative, like making something for themselves. I mean, I'm not saying go ahead and just freely type stuff into an AI. Like, but if you're like actually making art for yourself, or just making art, you know, actually making art, you know, I don't want to ever discourage somebody for that, you know, no matter what their skill level or anything like that, you know. I'd rather encourage people to make stuff.
Well, we just got to remember the green isn't a creative color.
What?
So there was a video for a while called Let's Be Creative, and it's one of those just silly internet videos that means next to nothing unless you really look at it.
Yeah.
And one of the things is it's like a school teacher singing a song to try to get their kids into creativity. And then when one of them's about to color with green, she stops him and says, "Green is not a creative color."
Wait, is that the "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" video?
Yeah, "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared."
I've seen that one. Yeah, that shit's so weird.
And it's like, but if you think about it, like, there's a lot of people out there who, you know,
yeah,
they do that to people. That they tell them, you know, yeah, and you know,
You've got
I mean, I was told by my college professor I wasn't very good at drawing, and I tend to use that as spite to continue drawing, but I digress. You know, I'd rather encourage people, and the opposite end of that though too. It's like, part of the reason sometimes where I'm hesitant to share my work is I don't want to just come into the room and just act like I'm like a person that's better than anyone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, maybe you have those thoughts of ego. I mean, I'm sure everyone does. But it's different from thinking of something and acting on something, which, as someone that deals with intrusive thoughts, boy, that's a hard thing to learn. But yeah, it's like, you know, I don't want to just like come in as someone that's like pretentious, just showing off my work. I'd certainly like to like post my work, but you know, I just, you know, I don't want to just post my stuff and be like, oh yes, worshiping or anything like that. I'm very much a down-to-earth person. I don't think I'm better than anyone. So, man, we're getting heavy on this one.
You need to do a piece where it's like the same bottle of Malort, but in different like color gradients.
Oh, I do the Andy Warhol thing.
Yeah.
He's a weird dude.
Sometimes you have to be.
That whole scene was weird, and it's also kind of tied to like the beginnings of punk and everything. It's like a whole thing. Very interesting music history there. Because Andy Warhol was like the manager of the Velvet Underground, which is a big, very important band. Not a very great manager, because you know, turns out artists aren't necessarily the most business-oriented people.
Ask me how I have experienced this, because I have.
Oh, I've done that too. What colors do you think would be good for this thing? I've been wondering that, you know. Also, I do need to add the gelatin part of it, so.
I imagine like, kind of like pinkish